Homelander exists in a verse where he is, without a doubt, the most powerful soup that exists. However, what happened if we took Homelander and we put him in an entirely different universe? A universe in which it is not totally solidified that he is the absolute top, most powerful soup, but rather there was someone there who could rival or maybe even surpass his own power. And considering Homelander's ego, this would not be something that would sit well with Homelander. So it would inevitably lead to a fight. And that's why today we're talking All Might versus Homelander. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, getting into Homelander versus All Might from My Hero Academia. So this battle is going to be pretty interesting. Let's first and foremost, as we always do, establish the rules for this battle. So this will be an all-out fight where collateral damage will not be a thing. So that means All Might will not be distracted with all the civilians in the surrounding areas, so they can both go all out in this battle. And as for All Might, we are going to be taking the form of All Might at his absolute peak. However, considering the fact that we don't realistically know what his absolute peak is, we're just going to take a look at all of his battles and only subtract the time limit that he has, like when he saves Class 1A at the USJ, or when he saves Bakugo from Shigaraki and the League of Villains. So to break all of this down, we have to consider who each of these characters have fought against and how they fared in those fights. So for Homelander, it is pretty simple. The two most powerful people that he faced off against would be Soulja Boy and Queen Maeve. Arguably, Temp v Butcher is up there as well, so I'll be taking him into consideration as well. As for All Might, his top fights would be against All For One and against Shigaraki and all of the League of Villains, plus that enhanced Nomu that he did battle at the USJ. So all that being said, let's get into how this exact fight would play out. And firstly, I don't think there's going to be an easy win state for either one of these characters. So that being said, anyone who wants to say that Homelander could just use his laser vision and kill All Might, that absolutely would not happen. All Might has been able to tank multiple insane attacks, especially from the likes of All For One, when he was literally combining all of his quirks. And considering the fact that these shockwaves and these blasts were enough to literally demolish whole city blocks, I think it stands to reason that Homelander's laser vision would not be able to do more damage than that. However, even if you want to say that it does, I still fully believe that All Might has the durability to stand up against this. However, I know another thing people will say is that Homelander could simply pick All Might up, fly him up into space, and All Might would be dead. And yes, you would be right. If Homelander would be able to do that, All Might obviously cannot survive in space. And I know we literally saw Homelander fly someone up to space within about 3 seconds. However, a very important thing to note here. Number one, he did this to a literal human. Number two, he did this to someone who not only was human, but also was not expecting it. And number three, he did this to someone who had no intention of actually fighting back. Now, if we take a look at All Might and how he would react to this, All Might has super speed. We saw during the USJ attack that he was able to speed blitz multiple enemies. He was able to speed blitz Shigaraki and get multiple members of Class A out of the precarious situation that they were in. And he was able to do this while Nomu was right there. So considering that, although it would appear that it would only take about 1 to 2 seconds to fly someone up to space for Homelander, for someone like All Might, that would be a ton of time. He has a slowed down perception. The ability to move with super speed with his type of precision shows that he has some level of fast perception. And add into the fact that if Homelander were to be able to pick up All Might and start flying him up into space, All Might would be able to react to this and punch Homelander multiple times. And considering he was able to receive damage from the likes of Soulja Boy and the likes of Queen Maeve, it would stand to reason that All Might, who definitely has more attack power than either of those two characters, would be able to hit Homelander hard enough to stop him from flying up into space. And he would create an opening in which Homelander is vulnerable. And if he's able to knock Homelander back, All Might has shown the ability to not fly, but propel himself through the air using his air force. And considering the fact that we've seen him do this and land with an insane amount of impact, it would stand to reason that he could actually use this to his advantage. Launch Homelander back down to the ground and then launch himself and attack Homelander. However, another thing we have to consider with this hypothetical battle between Homelander and All Might is their experience. Homelander is used to just using his overwhelming power and his overwhelming strength to win any fight he's in. That's why when he goes up against Queen Maeve or up against Soulja Soldier Boy, he realistically struggles because he doesn't have any true hand-to-hand combat ability. Both of those two characters surpass him when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. So it would stand to reason that someone like All Might, who actively trained very often to become the #1 hero, would be able to surpass Homelander in hand-to-hand combat. However, when it comes to their actual striking ability, I also believe that the edge has to go to All Might. I feel like he's just shown a higher level of power. Even in the movie Two Heroes, he's shown the ability to smash through gigantic objects with relative ease. And keep in mind, this was theoretically a weakened version of All Might, considering the fact that he far surpassed his time limit, and yet still he was putting in an insane amount of work and doing an absurd amount of damage. So if these two were to start clashing in this battle, and Homelander were to very quickly realize that he couldn't just end this fight very easily, and he couldn't use his laser vision or his flight to fly All Might up into space, he would try to use his strength against All Might. However, that wouldn't work as well as Homelander would expect, because he would find out very quickly that not only can All Might absorb virtually every single attack that Homelander could throw at him, All Might would be able to dish out a beating and even heavier attacks than Homelander has ever experienced. And another thing we have to keep in mind is we have seen Homelander bleed multiple times. And unlike a person like Superman, who only realistically bleeds when it comes to kryptonite, or if someone has some type of space-based ability, or at times sometimes magic can have an effect on him and attack his direct vulnerability, Homelander instead just has far less durability. We've seen Queen Maeve be able to make him bleed, not to mention the fact that Soldier Boy was able to cause actual bruising on Homelander, so much so that Homelander had to put on makeup just to make sure the public did not see the damage Soldier Boy had inflicted. So if in this hypothetical, Homelander would try to get in an all-out slugfest against All Might, the fight would probably be over pretty quickly. All Might would deliver so many strikes to Homelander that he probably wouldn't be able to react fast enough to counter at all in this situation. Not to mention the fact that we've seen multiple times when Homelander does take actual damage, he takes moments to hesitate because it surprises him. It catches him off guard. So if he goes up against someone with the power of All Might, Homelander would be on his heels for practically the entire fight. And considering the fact that All Might has the ability not only to use insanely powerful attacks, but also speed up those attacks, similar to how the Flash does, and just go with a rapid fire as far as punching, this would do so much damage to Homelander that the fight could theoretically be over when it comes to close combat in less than a minute, because All Might would have the ability to throw anywhere between 50 and 500 punches, just depending on how absolutely fast he wants to throw those strikes. And just because they would be that fast, it doesn't mean All Might would actually sacrifice any strength or any power in those punches he throws. We've seen that even when he throws a ton of punches in very quick succession, they are still incredibly powerful. So powerful, in fact, that they were able to negate the ability that the Nomu had for regeneration. He had shock absorption, however, he did not have shock nullification. So this means that All Might had to continuously throw punches at 100% so quickly that it could actually outmatch not only the regeneration, but also the shock absorption. And this was something that he was able to do. And not only was he able to do this, he still was able to continue fighting after this. Well, technically, in this hypothetical, he would be able to keep fighting because the only reason he had to stop fighting was because of that time limit. And keep in mind, he was also trying to protect multiple members of Class 1A in that situation at the USJ. So considering the fact that he would only have to deal with Homelander in this scenario, there would be no civilians around, and probably most importantly, there is no time limit for All Might. So he can use 100% of his power for the entire duration of this fight. Now, if he has to push it even further than that and go up to something like 500 or 1000%, then yes, putting in a time limit does make sense. However, in my opinion, I don't think he's going to have to do this against Homelander. You see, Homelander doesn't have anything that's comparable to shock absorption. He also doesn't have durability that is anywhere near comparable to that of All For One or that of the Nomu. So it would stand to reason that All Might, with probably 10 to 20 punches, if they land, would be able to take out Homelander relatively easily. As for Homelander actually being able to do damage to All Might, I don't think he's going to be able to do anything unless he uses his most powerful version of his laser vision and just do that continuously. However, considering the fact that All Might literally has super speed, I don't see this being able to be something that Homelander can just continuously do and hit the same exact spot on All Might. So how would this hypothetical battle actually play out? Well, if they fought 10 10 times out of 10, I think at a minimum, All Might would win 9 out of 10 of these battles. And the only scenario in which Homelander could possibly have a chance at coming out on top is if we took away the rule that these two were in a fight where no civilians were around. If there were civilians that All Might had to protect, then he would theoretically be at a huge disadvantage. We saw in the fight against All for One how much of a disadvantage he was truly at. He had to stand in front of multiple attacks because although he could dodge those attacks, there were multiple civilians who couldn't. So instead of dodging and saving himself, he stood in the line of fire and just took the attack head on. However, even in this scenario, I don't know if Homelander would be able to do enough damage to All Might to actually take him down. Because also keep in mind, All for One had multiple ways to keep All Might away. Things that Homelander just simply doesn't have access to. I feel like the only things that Homelander could realistically rely on in this battle would be his laser vision and his super speed. However, considering the fact that All Might's super speed probably surpasses anything that we've ever seen from Homelander, it would stand to reason that Homelander is just at a huge disadvantage pretty much all the way around when it comes to this fight. And the only real speed feats that Homelander has that are actually impressive was being able to keep up with A-Train and also speeding over in a close quarter situation to Frenchie in practically the blink of an eye. However, we also have to take a look at the different things that All Might has been able to do. He's been able to speed blitz multiple enemies. I mentioned that earlier in the video. And he's been able to theoretically move, attack enemies, and also protect people at the same time. So it would stand to reason that his speed is either on par with Homelander or even surpasses that of Homelander. And as far as fast perception, we actually haven't realistically been shown anything to indicate that Homelander can do this. Now, he probably has some degree of fast perception, considering most people with super speed have to have this, otherwise they are just going to be crashing into everything. However, when we see A-Train show up in season 5, we can clearly see that his fast perception is far faster than anything Homelander has. And this is shown because as Homelander is firing his lasers at Huey, A-Train is able to run around, save multiple members of the boys, and then get Huey out of there. If Homelander had a faster perception, he would have been able to take note of the fact that A-Train had arrived, and even if he wasn't able to actually laser him as he was running around in that circle, saving multiple members of the boys, he would have been able to do more damage with his laser vision by simply moving his head slightly when A-Train finally got to Huey to save him. However, he wasn't able to do this. In fact, his head actually doesn't move at all. And this is shown by the fact that A-Train only gets hit on his shoulder. So it would stand to reason that Homelander doesn't have that fast of a fast perception, especially not anything that compares to All Might. So even in that one scenario where All Might has to protect multiple civilians, I think he's showcased the ability, the power, and the speed to be able to save all of these people and also take down Homelander all in one fell swoop. And there's virtually nothing that Homelander can do to stop All Might in this scenario. And there is also an argument to be made that All Might is actually fast enough to speed blitz Homelander, because again, someone like A-Train could have theoretically speed blitzed Homelander if he simply had the strength to do so. Now, if you're giving someone with speed that's comparable or maybe even that surpasses that of A-Train, plus the power of someone who surpasses the strength of Homelander, yeah, it would stand to reason that All Might may very well be able to just speed blitz Homelander right in the beginning and end this battle very quickly, putting a stop to Homelander once and for all. But I'm interested to hear from all of you. How do you think a fight between the Symbol of Peace and Homelander would go? Do you think it would be as one-sided as I do? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.